Welcome everybody from wherever you are to the IESF International Esports Referee Summit for 2020. My name is Reed Melton, and I've been fortunate enough to work with IESF for the last 4 or 5 years, and I'm glad to be here as the moderator and MC for today's discussion. Today we have a lot on the table for you. We have 2 keynote speeches and a panel discussion to follow that. So let's go ahead and meet our first keynote speaker, Synnara Bae, who has been vice chairman for the IESF Referees Committee and also a head referee of IESF 12th Esports World Championship. So please join me in welcoming Synnara.
Hello everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Synnara, the International Esports Referee from IESF and KESPA. IESF is International Esports Federation and KESPA is Korea Esports Association. I'm very delighted to have this opportunity to speak about the International Esports Referee. Today, I'm going to talk about what an esports referee is and then what we do, and then how the laws of esports and general sports referees are different. In addition, I'll give you some information about how to become an international esports referee, the difference between international and domestic referees, and qualifications the international referee must have, differences between online and offline competitions, and I will also tell you about my experience as an international referee. I hope this video helps those who are interested in esports referees. Okay, before start, there are some people who wonder why the title of my video is WWER, or by the end of my video, you will know the meaning of this title. In the meantime, try to guess what this might mean. First, let me tell you the difference between an esports referee and regular sports referee. As you know, regular sports referees are the referee you see when you watch a game like baseball, basketball, volleyball, soccer, etc. etc. The rules of the referees vary. Referees check if a player has committed a foul, and if the player has committed a foul, referee gives penalty to the player and sometimes order to leave. Referee also make sure that players arrive at the stadium on time at the set time. If the match result is not decided by the end of the match time, the match may be replayed at the discretion of the referee, or the victory may be declared to one team based on the rule. The esports referee is similar. The only difference is that all games are played on PC or a game console, so esports referee needed to check the players' equipment and internet before start the match. Esports can have many unexpected variables than regular sports. The internet may be interrupted during the game, or the game may be stopped due to computer problems. In this case, the referee must take into account the situation of each team and decide whether to replay the match or to declare victory to one team. And the referee needed to check if the player carries any electronic devices before the match starts. Due to the nature of esports, carrying certain electronic devices can be cheating. For example, if a player uses his or her mobile phone to watch a broadcasting of the match, he or she can check the opponent's units or strategies. So, to prevent such misconduct, players not allowed to carry any electronic devices during match. Next, I will talk about the difference between international and domestic referees. And we'll tell you how to become an international referee. Domestic referees are divided into first, second, and third grade referee according to their experience and ability. Although it varies from country to country, domestic referees usually start at level 3. And as the years accumulate, referees take the test to be promoted from level 3 to level 2 and level 2 to level 1. If you pass the test, you can advance to the next level. There are two types of tests. One is a written test and the other is a field practice test. The written test is about the general rules of its games, and the field practice test is making a judgment by yourself under given a specific situation. Domestic referees are selected by each country's esports association, and because the domestic referee is literally a domestic referee, she or can only participate in the domestic game of the country. The referee must know well about the game and must know game rules exactly. International referees can only apply to those who have experience in domestic referees. To become an international referee, a domestic referee should belong to the Esports Association of the country. And you need to apply for the IESF. But in this case, you should receive a recommendation from the Esports Association. Among the applicants who have passed the documents, they will given an opportunity to receive training at IESF. Applicants are tested during training, and those who pass the test will be given an international referee certification. From then on, they can become an international referee and can act as an esports referee in any country in the world where esports is held. International referee use English, and it is better if you can use many languages. In addition, international referee make the rules for each competition and give lectures at the referee academy to train other international referees. Of course, the lecture is in English. Sometimes people ask me, can't I get another job if I become an international referee? You can get another job in parallel with the international referee. Some of my WCG international referees, a manager of an IT company in Spain, a doctor in India, an international lawyer in Italy, a weapon designer in Spain, in Canada, a professional gamer. I have another job as well, but if you want, you can join an esports association and you can make an esports referee as your regular work. Next, let me talk about the difference between offline and online matches. Usually, esports is played in a stadium with a large audience. However, due to the recent pandemic related to COVID-19, Many international matches have been played online. During the duration of this pandemic, there will be more online competitions than offline, I think. As you know, online matches have a stage in a large stadium and players play on the stage. And it is to deal with an emergency situation because there are many steps, including the referees, around the stadium. However, in online competition, players play in their home or in their own space, so it is difficult for referees to check whether the players are cheating or whether the player's equipment is correct. However, it is not possible to leave all of this to the conscience of the players. So in online competition, a cam or camera that can check the player status must be installed in the space where the players play. In online competition, referees and players may communicate using voice chat programs such as Discord, but as they are not face to face like in offline competition, various problems may happen. So the rules for offline competitions and for online competitions are quite different. The online game rules have been revised recently and some parts need to be supplemented, so I want to talk about them here. If you're an international referee, you can participate in the international referee meeting and give your opinions on creating and supplementing new rules. The world of esports is expanding. The number of international esports competitions and spectators are growing, and the size and prize money of the tournaments are as large as regular sports. The esports industry is developing day by day, and accordingly, the training of players and coaches in esports is actively progressing. As a result, there are many competitions which needs esports referees, and especially a lot of professional referees are needed. If you are interested in international esports referee, I think now is a very good time to prepare. As an international esports referee, I have been able to visit many countries around the world and make many friends all over the world. And I was able to experience various cultures as well. During my 10 years as an international esports referee, I have had many valuable experiences that I would never have been able to do without this job. Since my friends live all over the world, I'm not alone there wherever I go. In addition, it is very rewarding that I became to have a very wider perspective, and I have made and carried out a big stage while running many international competitions so far. One of the 5 best things I've ever done is an international esports referee. I'm sure that if you challenge to be an esports referee, your life will be more colorful and you will have a great experience that no one else can. WWER, the meaning of the title of my video is Worldwide Esports Referee. And now do you understand why I made the title like that? Try to be an international esports referee. The world will be your stage. Thank you for watching.
All right, now let's meet our next awesome guest speaker, Markus Koskivirta, who's working as a tournament manager at ESL Gaming. And so let's go ahead and welcome Markus.
Hello, everyone. My name is Markus Koskivirta, and I've been asked by the International Esports Federation, IESF, to deliver a keynote for everyone participating in these referee talks. First, a little about myself. I have been involved in the esports refereeing business for about 10 years now, starting actively since 2010. Even though I have been involved in the gaming community for a much longer time, that is where I actually started to take a look into the forays of what it means to be a referee and work accordingly. Most recently, the last 3 years of my life, I have been working at ESL here in Cologne, Germany. First as a community manager, and then afterwards as a league operations specialist. So my work experience spans from the lowest community level to the highest possible level of tournament operations as well. Today I will be talking to you about many aspects of the refereeing field, how it has been impacted, especially by the COVID-19 pandemic, and what we can do in the future to maybe reinvent or reinvigorate some parts of the scene by our own actions. As you can see by the slide, first I will focus a little bit on the career opportunities in the field and how the pandemic has impacted our day-to-day operations and our possibilities of doing our job properly. And in some cases, how the progression from purely volunteer positions has been delayed significantly by the cessation of live events itself. As everybody is, I'm sure, aware, almost all of the live events which our entertainment industry relies upon have been cancelled, which has led to the fact that many of the referees who were expecting to get gig jobs or some sort of experience gain possibilities have been cancelled and have not been able to progress to the next level in their careers. As most of the referee work taking place on this time has moved back to online. We're back to the very old ways of having more than 95% of the referees in the esports field be volunteers or completely unpaid workers who use their passion and their energy to bring the field forward. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think it's a really good thing that most of the grassroots experience and enthusiasm takes place first on the volunteer field, and I encourage everybody to continue building your base with that. But let's say that the professionalism of the field is somewhat dependent on the fact that more and more of the referees start climbing up the social ladder, where you are given the opportunity to show your professionalism and your ability at a live stage. Now with COVID, that opportunity, like I stated, has been taken away from many of you and from many future generations of referees for a while. With that in mind, we must discuss about the fact that when events, tournament organizers, even local community activations hire or consider getting people for their work, they will not be looking at the same amounts of people that they would have otherwise been. For instance, if a team used to comprise of 6 people, where 4 of those people were actively participating in overseeing the players in their stages or wherever they were situated, and only 2 of those people were considered technically necessary, then out of that team you would only have those 2 necessary people still there. This means that those opportunities from the 4 others have been delayed until further notice. So you need to keep that in mind for your own personal development. Don't despair. The number of people who will be working on this field will increase again in the future. There are also current trends showing that certain game developers, Epic Games for instance, has just announced that they will not hold any live events in 2021 either, to prepare for the COVID-19 pandemic to continue, and this will continue impacting us. So we have to keep an ear and an eye out for what the developers and the current game systems are going to be focusing on more, whether it'll be online operations or offline operations. Seeing as how it's likely to be online operations, then perhaps applying our skill sets for many other tournament organizers is also a very prudent way to go. For most of you, your focus should still stay where it has been since the beginning, on local growth. I believe every single one of our international and national referee program people have a desire and a passion to ensure that their local community, their national environment continues to grow, that we continue providing opportunities for the local players to show their skills against each other and organize themselves into a coherent competition. For that, the referees are an extremely crucial part of the community. From my personal experience, I can talk about the Hearthstone Finland community, where I built my very first single person operation, basically carrying the whole scene by myself, by organizing tournaments, by getting more people to volunteer for the community, by getting location scouting, everything relevant to getting regional qualification events to be approved by Blizzard, who at that time still organized local community get-togethers more actively. And that experience allowed me to raise myself above the base level of this guy is a good volunteer, he does what's told, and put myself into a position where I could show others that I am a go-getter, I'm a person who's willing to organize, I'm a person who is dedicated to whatever it is that they want to make better in their esports scene of choice. In that case, it happened to be Hearthstone, which was a card game, but this applies to every single game you can think of. Sometimes it might not be as easy if it's not a single-player competition like Hearthstone is, and it might require more patience, especially if you have to organize with teams, because let's face it, communication with more people is more difficult than singular. But when you hang on to it, when you keep at it, and you develop your regional crew, your regional competencies, that will ensure that there is continuity even after you leave the scene. That is one part where I failed personally, because once I moved on to the next opportunity, which was a commercial opportunity, the scene itself practically imploded in on itself because there was no guiding light to keep it up anymore. So ensure continuity as well in your operations. I want to make a short shout out to individual feats as well, because we're talking about all of your career developments, about all of the opportunities that the referees, not just now but in the future, will have available to them. Whenever you have a chance to engage in a significant project that will not necessarily immediately be apparent as to how it might pay off or how the amount of work you're putting into it would be worth it, how it could be seen as a positive development when you're spending hours and hours on something that seems either trivial or something that would only pay off much later. We have a good case of such enthusiasm and proof that it's definitely worth it. I'm talking about the recent esports awards winners, Michał Slovinsky and Steve Dudenhofer, who used their own private time to investigate the coach bugs initially in Counter-Strike Global Offensive. They used very, very many hours coming up with tools and methods with which to find who had cheated and who had not. That effort paid off. They got contacted and eventually worked with the Esports Integrity Commission, who was then able to take their actions and put it into bans towards those people who were involved with the cheating coach scandal. All these sorts of opportunities where you build yourself a name among any scene will help you, of course, in your career. It is very rare that these opportunities come along, so do keep that in mind. Whenever something seems like it's a behemoth of a task to take on, it might not be worth it, but it well might also be worth it. So, always depending on the situation in hand. So, what is the major difference between then and now? Before COVID, post-COVID? I would say that for our duties as a referee, COVID has imposed a very unique challenge where we cannot do our jobs in the way that we used to in the past. We do not have physical access to the players and their machines for live events. We do not have a way to check the screens of the players to ensure that anybody taking part in a competition is playing by the rules as strictly as we possibly could. But the fact is, that doesn't mean we're unable to do our job. What nowadays is more of a technical challenge used to be what was done live in the past. Consider this, our communication right now. I'm 100% confident that my speech / engagement with you, everyone, would be much more effective. It would be much more interesting if I was able to edge your reaction to what I'm saying and comment on perchance any of your questions. But it does not mean I'm not able to talk to you via camera about these subjects themselves. So consider the camera an extension of yourself. If there's a possibility to oversee the players, either as a screen capture or via a player camera or any other method with which you're able to perceive their actions, then use that opportunity to you. Of course, this is not always possible, especially in big online tournaments, but still, it doesn't have to be completely non-optional in that regard. We're aware that software solutions are not optimal. Whenever you're talking about a tool, for instance, a screen capture tool or a screen recording tool or a voice communication recording tool, there are going to be people who do not like that, who do not like being observed. And there's no way for us to enforce it properly and efficiently when we don't have that physical access. But when the rules are made clear and participation into these tools is not optional, teams have to comply and have to follow the regulations. So be strict. Make sure that the rules are always followed, and those who do not get to participate. As always, communication is key. When you talk to your players, when you talk to your community members or your team representatives, you have to be extra clear in your communication. You have to be extra straightforward. There is no face-to-face component to this. There is only text. And within text, it is very easy to misrepresent whatever you wanted to say or to misunderstand whatever the other party has been saying to you. Patience and trying to see what the possible cause or intent of the other person communicating is extra important in all of these online communications during COVID. Consider what platforms you're using. Consider maybe Discord or whichever community platform already exists would be the perfect way to go about it. Maybe the tournament operator who you're working with or the platform you're using already provides you with tools with which to get the messages across. But there still needs to be some way to contact you efficiently and in a timely manner. Second factor, when talking about online platforms, how do you expect teams and players to provide proof of their actions? Sometimes, especially when you think about the fact that you might have hundreds of players taking part, there's no way for individual referees to check every single result. You need some way to have the players confirm this. It is basically normal online tournament operations, but this time there might be tens of thousands of euros on the line. So the stakes become much higher. You have to have a way to validate proof. You have to have a way to ensure that whatever documentation or screenshots or whatever format those results take place has been uploaded in a timely manner and in a reliable fashion. It's not just one or two times when I have in my career seen somebody upload a troll face for a result and say they won 2-0 when in reality they lost 0-2. So there also has to be a way for teams and participants to dispute the results without automation just taking over and saying, okay, this troll face guy here, he won, can't be helped. Believe me, it can happen and has happened, so always check. Basically, best practices for then versus now. We're not going back just 1 year. We're going back 5 years or so. Back to the day when online tournament operation was the norm. When there were no big stadium events yet. When there were just the basis of the community and the ideas behind it. We just need to make it even better than it was back then. So, we have noted that we need to have a technical solution in place to monitor the people who take part in the tournaments or whatever casual local stuff we might be running. Despite the level of the tournament, the integrity should always be a priority. Not everyone has access to huge amounts of money with which to procure equipment or technical solutions for these sorts of required checks and balances for the players taking part. That's completely fine. If your regional smaller level tournament doesn't have the capacity to check all of the results in a webcam sort of way, then do what you can. Focus on the technical solutions you have in place. Say that the platform only provides screenshot proof. Fine, that's still better than nothing. But talking to the greater point of having access to those resources, what are the things that we can take? A good example, in my opinion, is Riot Games when they did their League of Legends series, I believe a year or two ago. They sent all the players a prepackaged Raspberry Pi, which had the capacity to send the player picture, which is their player camera, to the right production people directly. It was fully pre-configured, totally plug and play, extremely easy to use, almost no technical know-how needed to operate. Now, what it took to get that sort of automated machinery to those teams was a humongous effort. The technical know-how of the people behind that, the resources, the man hours, the configuration, all of that for 50 plus devices takes a lot of time and takes a lot of money. So not everyone has those resources as Riot does. But when you have the opportunity to do things like that, to ship hardware to players, of course, as a referee, we should take every single step we can to ensure competitive integrity. Sometimes, though, things might be taken a little too far. If your participants are not in agreement or do not understand that all of their materials might be recorded and used in a certain way, you can have debacles, like recently in Blast, the Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Teams refused to start playing because their team recordings had been used in an inappropriate way, which they had not agreed upon, and this really reflected poorly on the tournament organizer itself. In these online times, there was nothing they could do except wait for the players to agree to continue. But in that case, the problem clearly lied in the fact that this wasn't communicated properly to the teams and the players and how they were going to use that material. So as long as everyone is aware of what it is that they're being recorded about and where those recordings are being used, you should all be good. Quick note about the budgeting. When you consider the amount of hardware that Riot did and the amount of man-hour work that was put into it, the cost of technical know-how of a Linux specialist, we're talking 5 figures at minimum in euros or USD. Those kinds of budgets are not feasible for most tournament organizers, especially not on a national level. So don't expect miracles to happen. But if, for instance, you have a chance to ask players to use their own personal equipment, put up a display stream on a Discord channel, so you can see what's happening, sure, go for it. It's easy to do that in like an 8-person StarCraft 2 tournament, for instance. You can have a player camera on a very shoestring budget as well. And if your broadcast plus your community likes it, it's also value to them, not just to the integrity of the tournament. So it's all not just how you sell it, but also how you utilize it. As a conclusion, how do we go forward? How can we be confident doing our jobs during this COVID-19 era, when we can expect it to continue at least until 2021? We've, in the past, mainly focused on adapting to the situation. I personally saw my company do a miraculous turnaround, where a tournament was supposed to start with audience in Katowice this year, but just days before the audience was supposed to gather to the arena, the local restrictions came into place and said it's not possible to have everybody there, or not even a fraction of the people there. But the organizers still adapted. The tournament was done, and everything possible that we could do, we did. Those kinds of situations are extremely difficult to handle, but the adaptation period, I would say, is already done. We now know that we cannot do the same things that we did in the past. We have to look beyond just organizing our local community groups into a singular situation or location, and instead try to keep up the momentum of our online work. We're looking at innovation more than adaptation. So it is not just the tournament organizers, but it's also us who need to think about the possibilities and the options we have going forward for creative ways to organize tournaments. It doesn't all have to be 100% serious. It doesn't have to be this level of competition has to have this and this and this. You can also look into something that nobody has done before, or more casual, feel-good environments for something that just builds your local community and your national enthusiasm for esports in general. It's easy to say, no, that's not possible right now. We don't have the resources for it. We don't have the time. People are not interested. But there's only one way to really find out, and this is by trying. So I encourage all of you watching this to go out and organize even a little experimental stuff to see how it works, how people react to it. If it doesn't work, sure, a little time wasted, but this is your free time anyway, so not too bad, Trying out things is better than not trying out things. Especially in this modern time when global events are not going to be a real factor. They're not going to be possible. A person living in Australia cannot play with me here in Cologne, Germany, because the pings are just too high. We have to focus our effort on the local scene and the healthiness of that local scene for once this restriction from COVID is lifted and we can finally get them back to that global competition position. To close off, I hope for the return of the global events as soon as possible. I hope all of you within your own regional referee scenes or your general esports scenes will continue to work on it, and that we someday might be able to see eye to eye. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Markus. And thanks to both of our key speakers for their amazing content. We are very happy to have them this year. Synnara and Markus, thank you very much. And now we get to move on to our panel discussion. Today we have an amazing panel on building structures for long-term education and career development. It's very important, not just for referees, but everybody involved in esports. So let's go ahead and welcome our panelists. We have David, Roman, Serhat, Hussein, and Vortep. Nice to meet you all again.
Hi. What's good?
Hey.
Okay, all right. We've got everybody here, and it's time to start our panel discussion. And I guess Ostensibly, the topic of this panel discussion is building structures for long-term education and career development within esports. So I guess I can go ahead and start with kind of a basic question, and this will be open to everybody. And then as we get through the discussion, I'll start asking people individually, and we can all just have a conversation about this topic. So kind of my first point or question about this topic is about its importance. So the question is, how crucial is it for having experience as a player or pro player from other esports to being a referee? Do you think that you absolutely have to be a pro player first? How important is that to being an esports referee?
May I go ahead?
Go for it, David.
I'm sorry. Yes, I took the advantage. I'm not pro player. I was not a pro player back in the day. I mean, for a referee, it's important to know the scene of players. It's important to know the rules of the games. It's important to know the details of the game, but not to be a pro player. I mean, for me, I guess it's not necessary at all. A referee must be, maybe this has changed a little bit with the time, but you guys tell me that are more into it right now. But a referee on an offline tournament must be something mixed between a technical guy that can solve a quick reaction, solving technical problem, and I will go into that later. But I want to know what the pro player thinks about it. So move ahead. Go, yes, that you were waving your hand.
Yeah, I think in addition to your comments, I agree that the referee doesn't have to be a pro player, but definitely he is a gamer. And after that, he has to have some social skills in order to operate under stress. Because right now we have seen an esports refereemanship is become professional. Now many of our friends has referee certificates. Governments are supporting these initiatives, and the trainings are given. But back in our times, that we had to do everything ourselves, and we were acting like one group of people trying to fix a broken thing non-stop. It was more than managing a tournament. It was more than managing everything, because when I started first, the referees didn't speak English. Can you believe that? Because the tournaments were happening in Korea, and back in those days, the Korean people tend to not to speak English, even they know. 20 years ago, I'm talking about that the mentality was a little bit different, but it resulted that the teams like, for example, our friends Craig from 3D is having a problem on the stage. The Turkish national team is having a problem on the second booth, and there was nobody to fix it. And then there was a nice guy, our very good friend Shiva, the first guy who jumped into discussions to talk other people in English, trying to solve a tournament. And the next year, WCG created this international tournament program, which we are become part of this initiative. But today, it's changed a lot, that we see a lot of professional referees. Even it's a starting point into your career. Like many of us started our career by creating tournaments, running tournaments, and then becoming managers, international tournament organizers, and such, and so on. So it's a starting point, but today is much more important to be able to control the situation, and you don't need to be a pro player. Let's wrap up everything.
Okay. Then maybe some of our ex-pro or semi-pro players can chime in there, just give your kind of perspective on what that brings to being a referee as well.
Good
Okay.
point. I'm gonna give the word
you
to
want to go first?
Yeah, no, you, please.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. As an ex-professional player myself, I don't think you need to have to be pro player before you can do refereeing. But I think what important is the insight that you as a player have the perspective on the situation is very crucial for you to do the refereeing correctly, because I think a lot of times we as a human being don't have a broad perspective into the matter, and often we use our emotion or experience in your life, right, to judge things when there's the situation arrive. So I think you don't have to be pro player, but you need to learn or know some part of the experience, how player corresponding to the situation. So that way, I think you be a better referee when you have those insight, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. Can I take the part now?
Yes, go on.
Go for
please.
it.
Okay, so I might take it a little bit further around the right side, around the left side as well. So obviously, I started as an admin in first place. I mean, I used to be a semi-pro player, then got the chance to be a professional player, and then I ended up working for the events, and then I ended up casting the events. So basically the same. For me, it was kind of easy to get into the refereeing because it's been something I was doing for all of the time in online events already. And I think, just to answer the question up front, it's very important to know the game mechanics. I'm speaking of any title you are actually refereeing or you are entitled to judge of. The problem is if you are somebody that is just educated from an academic point of view, you are lacking the social component in order to know what exactly is going through the mind of the player at the same time as what the event as a whole is aiming to achieve. So I think we need to first take a look at esports in general, and I'm speaking of as a sports event. So if we're looking at traditional sports like soccer or football or basketball or whatever, they have defined structures and they have their rule sets. So it means that we have to understand in first place that events in esports are made for the viewers in first place. So it's, in general, it's a sports event, but it's also a marketing event for publishers, for sponsors, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that a person that is responsible for refereeing has to understand in first place that he is one part of a big organization that is actually dedicated to viewers. So he needs to understand that all that he does on stage or maybe online, offline, is made for audience, and that he has to be he has to be precise about his decision making, as well as he needs to know that the most of the things are being broadcasted, and he has to fulfill tight schedules on the broadcasting row. And so I think that a person, going or taking it up from there, I think a person that is about to enter the esports field is supposed to understand that he has to know the rule set roughly. He has to be a little bit of an expert in IT environments, so he needs to know how to fix stuff quickly, maybe in stage matches where a person experiences a broken computer, mouse, headset, monitor, whatever. And in the second place, he needs to be a mature and I think also from a psychological point of view, a sustainable person, and actually he needs to have a certain mindset in order to understand that everything he does has a consequence. So I have a few thoughts on the technical scheme, and I also have a few thoughts on the social scheme and also on the marketing scheme in esports. So obviously, being a player, in first place, I understood how the game mechanics work in my game titles. So I knew all the glitchy spots, I knew all the exploits, I knew the rules. So I drafted also the rule sets for the tournaments, so I was aware, and I could I could tell people at any time what was going wrong, and I could also, now let's go to the second technical scheme. From a technical point of view, I was also an IT guy for all of the time, so I could fix small or minor problems on stage, which led the production to go smooth, and which led I think the whole makeup of the event go smoother. And from a marketing perspective, I was a person that had to take care of actually fulfilling the tight schedule of the event. So I think as an esports referee, you have to understand the whole circuit of the mechanics that are going at an event. I'm speaking of offline events, actually, as well as online events. So for both goes the same.
And actually, what you mentioned is definitely true. There are a lot of different characteristics that referees need to have. I think it's really interesting that we have kind of different generations of referees here, because that's kind of what I wanted to talk a little bit about more. Because, back when David and Serhat and everybody were beginning to get involved in esports in the very early days, they didn't really have a lot of referees, or the role of a referee wasn't really well defined. So nobody gave you like a handout that said, here's how to be a good referee at this event. You just kind of went there and tried to make everything work. Whereas now we have a lot of literature and a lot of ways of training referees. So that's kind of my second question about the education of referees. Is educating referees in an academic way, going through like academies and reading material about how to be an esports referee, is educating them in an academic way helpful? And is it does that support referees for the betterment of esports tournaments? Or do you think it's better to do it kind of the old-fashioned way and kind of learn on your feet? What's the best way of training esports referees to be what they need to be in the current esports ecosystem? Hussein, do you have a comment? Your microphone is muted, so if you'd go ahead and unmute your microphone, we'll be good.
Yeah, can you hear me well?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, that's perfect. What can I say? You can and you should teach the referees, but not the game perspective, but another way. I tell like political way of managing the game. So how to counter racism, how to counter discrimination, and how to speak with the players so it can show politely. Yeah, from that way of perspective, you should do it in an academic way. But you can never explain all the situations that's coming from all the games in academic. You need some experience also, like you need to participate in online and offline events. So, and when you will be in a situation that you have to manage it, and from sometimes there is nothing written in regulations about that, and you should do it politely, and you should players. So how to explain the players, it's academic way of doing that, but how to manage that for someone win, someone lost, maybe a rematch or something like that, it should be experience, and you should be involved in the events itself. It's something that never can be taught to you, how to explain to you like this.
We had some experiences within the university about education, but not specifically for referee education. I used the students as whoever wants to enter the esports industry as a first entry point was being a referee, being an admin in the game, because they were already experienced in playing the game and having some sort of IT background to manage the servers or start the games and manage the lobbies. On top of it, we give them an environment for them to experience, as Hussein mentioned. Those students' advantage was they were working with an industry professionals, so we were able to convey our experience to them, not in an academic way, but in a written way, that all the scenarios that can happen during the event and how they are going to respond to that, or if they cannot fix it, what is the hierarchical approach to bring the subject to the superior to fix it in a short time. And when we take them into stage matches, big games, that was working. So definitely an university environment or in any school environment for referee education is definitely helping, like in any other traditional sports, that they have to certify it. And as IESF, we are the only one certifying the referees today.
I will say that actually I will love to have back in the day some insights, I mean, some education, because Hussein said something really important, that you have to learn about how manage racism, how to manage certain stuff that is subtle, that is not, when you go to an international tournament, like we did back in the days, it's fairly easy to have confrontation, racism confrontations. I remember a heavy fight between Chinese team and a Taiwanese team over the flag and stuff like that. And that is not about the game itself. It's not about the video game itself. You have to know how to deal with such a discussion between players, because you are right in the middle. In this sport, there's like many levels, and on the floor level, on the amateurish scene, and a referee is just an IT guy and an admin, all the same. But on the ES level, on the World Cyber Games level back in the day, or big tournaments nowadays, a referee is more a specialist guy that maybe has not that much to do with the IT, because they have IT guys that will work to solve the problem quickly. But a political guy and someone that has to understand the psychology of the players and the implications, as Roman said, of the marketing and whole event running schedule thing. So you need to be quick on responding, and you need to be polite, and you need to be educated on how to resolve such problems in the moment. And I say, I will have loved back in the day to have been educated, as Hussein said, on those topics, because I have the experience for other reasons, but some not, and those can has like a huge impact. We have a referee, a Russian referee, that left the referees group because a Counter-Strike discussion in Seattle. Remember? Yes, I mean there was an exploit that they were exploiting, and the referee's decision was to penalty the teams that were exploiting the bunny hop back, and the Russian referee was so hard in his Russian feelings that he left the referees, and the rest of the event he didn't work as a referee. With some education, with some prior education, with some sort of courses and information ahead of that, we could have avoided such a problem. And he could understand that the whole thing is not about national pride, but about being professional.
Roman, if you have something to say, your microphone is muted, so we aren't able to hear you right now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, there we go. I can hear you now.
Okay, I can pick up on that. I had a similar situation in one of the events as well. So being a player and also an admin for a community and being multilingual, and etc., I knew some teams in person, and like the very top of the players, they always get along with each other. They play scrims and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of hard to make a decision and be neutral in making those decisions. And you, as a referee and an admin, you have to be aware at all of the time that you are set to do the most neutral decision that is possible. So we had a number of rule breaches, and so a German team that was back then a part of the tournament, and me obviously as a referee, I had to give them sometimes a hard time and to give them penalties and tell them to stop talking when the camera fades to black and all that kind of stuff. So they were really mad at me. They thought I was extra hard to them, but I was just doing my thing and I was just following the rules. And I think in this very situation, it's like, okay, there's this national thing. I was obviously cheering for my country. I wanted to have the medal and all that kind of stuff, but I had to be neutral at the same time. So it's kind of hard. And I think you have to have some sort of an authority for the players as an admin, as a referee. So they have to understand you are trying to do the best for the tournament and not the best for a particular country. And that's sometimes it's kind of hard to find this very particular line and not to cross it.
Education will help with that.
Yeah.
That's the point that we're making, right, Roman?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So David also mentioned the psychological effect, and I think that let's say a column in the part of the education of a referee should be some sort of a psychological education in first place. So how to react on certain situations, such as if you notice players are trying to fix scores, or they are persistently break the rules, or maybe they are offensive to each other, maybe they have fights or riots within the team. And I think that you can not only educate a person in an academic way, but also you have to have some sort of an apprenticeship where he is running alongside an experienced referee and is doing it for several events, so he gets mature as he proceeds. So he has to learn how to behave in certain situations, not just from the book, but also from experience.
Yeah. A lot of great points being made about like what you can learn from education, from an academic education, I guess what you should learn from your academic education, and what you have to kind of learn from good experience. And actually, I kind of wanted to ask about that, because when you have a curriculum or some academic literature that you want people to read to learn how to be a better referee, whether it's an academic class or whether it's like a piece of printed material you give the referees for an event, what are some of the topics that should be taught to referees? We've already touched on a few of them, how to handle delicate international issues, different referee standards for how to execute rulings. But I guess my question for all of you is, what are some of the most important things that we haven't talked about yet that you think should be included in the academic curriculum that is taught to referees?
I think, if I might take this point, I think sometimes you are drawn between decisions. I mean, you could either say, okay, let the match proceed if a breach has happened, or stop the match right there. So I think a person, how should I put it? I think somebody has to be trained on decision making in first place. So what's the best for the tournament, and what's the best for the player, and what's going to be the outcome? So he has to have some sort of understanding of how this whole chain is going to evolve if he does something. So maybe this is something philosophical in a way and psychological at the same time. So it's sometimes kind of hard, because if you want to stay on schedule, you have to be aware.
Mm-hmm.
More than that, we have to take the scholastic approach of the traditional sports. Why there is other sports giving referee credentials, right? Because they want to make sure the person is capable of running this particular sports in the manners of international standards. So we have to make sure that the IESF referee organization right now is the only international certification program which has to work with all the national federations globally with the sports ministries to create one standardized international credential approval system. So this is our certificate. We are still in very early stage of standardization of esports globally. We are not there yet. Even we are in this business for 20 years, but it's still moving on. So with this in mind, that the traditional institutions already know how to create curriculums within the universities or within the schools. Doesn't have to be a university in this sense, or a top level academia for this organization. Different from the other sports that we have full technical requirements, because we want to make sure our referees understands the technical part. Doesn't have to be an IT IT specialist, but we want them to understand the game itself, the technology itself, and the platform itself, where they are playing the game, what is the connection, and this type of stuff. So our international referee organization, on the curriculum, we have to have this technical background, plus how you manage your players. It's very similar in any other sports. If you're a referee for a football, if you're a referee for chess, the manners and the psychology and how to treat the players and such is already known and written. So I think we should create this curriculum within the IESF that we are already working for many years for this certification program. Bring the sports universities and sports people, traditional sports people, the academics from the sports industry to work together to create international standard for the curriculums. So basically these two topics, the game info, some IT information, and how to manage the situations will be enough to create the standardization. But is there any enough jobs for these referees to actually go and manage the tournament? Because IESF is managing its own once a year. So this is another question.
For me, topics that education must cover should be different tournament settings. I mean, as a referee, you must know how to handle a winner bracket versus lower brackets, or a Swiss tournament system, or all the different tournament systems that there are there and esports are running into. You need to know them well. You need to know how seeding works. You need to have an understanding of that part of the technical part of how to run a tournament is run, because players will say, why I'm seeding lower than the other team, and why they will complain. They will try they will do what players do, and it's their thing to do, and it's okay, but they will try to discuss with you every decision, and you have to have a clear mind on how the rule set works and everything. Educationally speaking, I will say English. Like learn having a better skills in English, and I'm rusted because I've been without speaking English for a long time. So I'm sorry for my terrible accent, but having a better English will help you as a referee, because you have to international referee, because you have to manage people from all over the world, and having a good comprehension of English and the technical wording of a tournament will help a lot. to you, because if you have the language, if you have the vocabulary, it will be way easier for you to manage certain situations within the competition itself. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Hussein, you have some thoughts? Your microphone is muted, so there
Yep.
you go.
Yeah. From this perspective of referee, um, your work starts not when the game starts, but a bit earlier. And from my point of view, ISF Academy should also teach you some basic rules of health and safety, because all the main point of all the events, not only in cybersport but in others, is the safety first. Safety for spectators, not for referees. Safety for players, and safety for broadcast. Okay, for referee perspective, safety for players should be one of the point of view that they have to mention. For example, just like example, when you see that there is some cables just in the middle of the stage, you should know how to manage that, so not a single player die because of that. Yeah, it's like kind of bad. Yeah, it's kind of a bad situation. Yeah, but the referees also like need to know how to use the hazard tape, like minimum. Yeah, that's why basic rules of health and safety is needed to know for all the referees, because like even if, for example, if some players feel injured or something, like feeling bad, and it's you need some like 1 minute or 2 minute till medical comes, but you need to to manage these 2 minutes, how to do it for yourself to help the player. Yeah.
I think I want to put more on, like, I really agree with Hussein on the referee should be foresee the, should I say, the expect the unexpected, right? Because like everything can happen during the tournament or even before or even after tournament finish, right? So I think the role of referee that should be taught in the academic way as well is how to manage the the event as well, so you can foresee what could happening during the tournament. Like for example, Hussein put like the cable in the middle of the stage, right? So player could like step into it and like slip down or something like that. So those should come into like consideration when you like refereeing the event, and like make sure everything is prepared and play under the fairness and the integrity of the competitive, right?
Yeah, but this comes to the level of what I've said before about different different layers of tournament quality. Because an IS referee should be working on a professional tournament, and yes, of course, I must be aware of my surrounding as a referee, and if I see a cable, I will have to know how to take that into safety. But I as a referee, I expect to have a crew of people working to do the right thing with those kind of stuff. Like I mean, of course, I'm a referee. I can handle a screen disconnection or a computer crash. That's okay. But I hope there's some electrician guy that can handle the loose cables and stuff, please, because I don't want to be electrocuted as well. So yeah, I mean, there's like a ton of different shapes and forms of tournaments, and for a professional referee point of view, you should be working on a professional tournament. If you're going to be paid and you're going to be a respectful figure as a referee, you expect the tournament to be running accordingly to that.
Right, and that's a great point to make, David. Because another question that I wanted to ask is where do you draw the line between what are the responsibilities of a referee and what are the responsibilities of like a technical delegate or an electrician or an IT guy? Where do the responsibilities of an esports referee begin and end?
I would like to point out that the days we were managing tournaments, the LAN tournaments, is actually not happening anymore. IESF World Cup is closest to that, but the rest of the competitions become big stage events right now. And the referees, IT teams, broadcasting teams, all of them are working together. Back in those times, we were doing everything. So we had to have our own area to manage everything with IT before the IT comes, and then make everything ready for the broadcasting team, so the matches can be broadcasted in a very amateurish way back then. But today, everything is broadcasting, and there is no margin of error, literally zero. Like when you're live, you have to be, everything should be perfect. So I think there is no boundaries between referees and those guys, because there is a team, usually they call them a league ops, league operations team, and they are managing all these aspects together, and they're running like a machine. So the referee mostly is just making sure that the stage tables are, all the computers are checked, everything is working fine, the signals, camera signals are running. So whenever happens, league op manager is just going to contact with him through a radio. And back in those times when we were just sending runners to find the head referee or the chief referee of the event to come back and fix the problem if we can't fix it on the ground. So I just wanted to say that there is no boundaries, like the person should do this or do that. I think a larger group is now managing the league operations altogether, instead of individual referees to just fix the personal issues with the players.
That comes to another topic, to the last topic of education. Knowing how to be proficiency with the radio comms or the comms itself, it's pretty important, because nowadays you need to coordinate with all the other teams on a quick and fancy way with radios or internal comms, because the events are running, as Serhat said, on a huge level in which everyone is coordinated through radio or whatever, and being capable of communicate precisely and quickly about what's going on as a referee to your league ops, so they can handle whatever is happening. It's really important. I'm with yes. There are still tournaments in which the communication is not that good, or you don't have a league ops, and you have to step forward and do some quick creation stuff, like changing a computer because you have one close to you that you will use as a backup, like in 2 minutes, not to delay a tournament for hours. But it's expected for us as a referee to be able to only focus on what our job is, that is refereeing players and helping them in the stage, or helping them into the gaming area to fulfill their occupation, that is play the game. That's for me what a referee should be doing, helping the players to run a tournament in such a smooth way.
Any other thoughts on the responsibilities of a referee, or what things that are not the responsibility of a referee that should be the responsibility of somebody else?
Well, I really like the take of David. I think refereeing should be able to like make the tournament run smoothly, right? So my take on the subject is, I think referee should be like available at all time to like make sure that everything, not just that particular situation, runs smoothly. So for example, like if there's the cable in the middle of the stage, it should not be the referee who do the taping work or something like that. It should be someone else, because like as when you doing that work, that might have happened, like they have a problem at the PC, at the stage or something like that. Another thing, so like as the head referee, you should be like do the job that not interfere with your main object, like to make the tournament run smoothly, right? But like for a lot of tournament that is smaller one, there's like the two-in-one job, like two job for one people, right? So that might misunderstanding some people, but I think most of the time, refereeing should not doing the groundwork. It should be someone else, like technical guys or runner guys doing those things. But the referee should make a decision that prevent the event to run badly.
I have an opinion on the standardization of esports events in general. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
And that was actually one of the
so-
next topics
so-
that we were going to discuss.
sure,
So that's
yeah.
a perfect segue.
Okay, so let me introduce that part from my opinion. What Serhat and David just spoke of is a standardization in a way. So it led me to a thought that back in the day, everyone was attuned to each other in the tournaments that we were doing together. So we knew exactly who to ask and where to go to get some spare equipment, to ask a technical guy to restart some server, PC, switch, whatever. And I think if you want to take it to a standardized level and you want to educate people, so it's not going to be always the same people working together in a bunch. So if there is let's say scholar education, there should be some sort of a standardized procedure where people know how to behave in certain situations. So if we're speaking of a tournament that has, let's say, multiple stages, and you have a chief referee, and you have a referee that is responsible for the group stage and all that kind of stuff. So people have to be aware who to ask and where to go in order to keep the tight schedule. And I think that a standardized rule set and a standardized procedure, if you define it once, it helps. But I think a person also needs to know how to read the rule set and how to understand the rule sets. So also meetings and brainstormings, and I think also conferences are inevitable in order to understand how to handle a tournament and how, as such in a whole, because we're speaking of FIFA, Counter-Strike, League of Legends, Dota 2, and all that kind of stuff. And those tournaments may differ from their technical makeup, also from the size of the tournament. And I think that having, let's say, as a schedule and a timeline, and understand how to note and how to proceed the timeline is very, very crucial. That's it.
I'm with Roman. Just to make an example, when we worked for World Cyber Games, there was two parallel events happening. One was the competition, and the other one was the broadcast itself, because World Cyber Game was televised in Korea with OGN. So the problem was that back in the day, the broadcast was held differently from the tournament, and we as referees has to adapt the tournament to the broadcast. Like state matches will be the ones that interest more to the audience and stuff like that, and not having the understanding of the global event itself, like having the broadcast schedule and the good communication between teams. these non-standardized events, as Roman Borathev and Serhat are saying, makes the work of a referee really difficult, because you want to take a decision, whatever it is, like, I don't know, to eliminate a team that has been cheating. But for the sake of the broadcast or whatever reason, that cannot be made, and you have to discuss with your your head admin, and then he will talk to the broadcast guy, and the event was running like two different events. If we standardize, if we get this standardization in which there's a figure coordinating all, the referee's work will be way easier.
Well, let's look at today's esports and stage refereeman position, because right now, let's say the League of Legends Worlds or MSI, this type of tournaments, is solely based on the broadcasting. So the referee's job is to make sure that the game is gonna play within the same schedule, on the same schedule, and which is much better, David. The tournament running at the same time and the broadcasting selective matches in a unregulated, unstandardized environment was a hell of a job for people. And we were like, sorry to say that, but we were like mules. So after 10 years of running this type of championships, we were excellent. I mean, the last couple of years, I remember we were finishing before anybody else and going to Seoul or Busan to enjoy ourselves. Because we remember the days that the tournament was taking longer hours until midnight, yeah? So this was 15 years ago, it was like this. I mean, I knew some amateur tournaments is happening like that as well. But on a top level, I think things are very smooth right now. The referee, especially League of Legends referees, let's say, has to provide professionalism. They cannot make mistake on stage. Even they do, the broadcasting team should cover them, and they have to work as a team, definitely. And they don't have that much job as probably IESF referees are doing with the World Championship. This is one of a kind events now, bringing all the world together to compete one tournament and run broadcasting at the same time, which I concur with David in that sense.
All right, I just have one final question. Thank you once again for all of your great discussion. Before we wrap this up, we've got 10, 15 more minutes. And so I did want to talk about kind of relating this to our current situation. Obviously, the Corona-19 virus has heavily impacted esports and really changed the landscape. So one of the questions that I had is specifically how to adapt referee education to our current esports atmosphere. So what do you think should be taught to referees amidst COVID-19 to help them adapt to working for online tournaments or even offline tournaments during the COVID-19 era?
I think, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? I think that in first place, a person or a referee or an admin has to have a common sense for what is appropriate and what is not. I mean, if he sees a person that comes to the venue and he's sick, coughing, maybe has fever or whatever, that he, knowing the tournament is due, and at the same time, the safety of the people is the most important in first place. Otherwise, we end up in a disaster. He has to have a common sense to understand, okay, I will not allow this player to enter the area. Or let's say if the team is drawn together in one room, one apartment or whatever, they are together anyway. So, but how do you separate the players, their seating and all that kind of stuff? And how do you arrange all the seats and all that kind of stuff? But I think it's more important to also understand that esports tournaments mostly take place during a period of, say, 10, 12 hours a day. So as an organizer, you have to be aware that people sometimes get tired, and then they maybe forget to take on their social mask or whatever. And I think that he has to be aware at all of the times that he has to remind players, take your social mask. And if it comes to the offline tournaments, to the online tournaments, I think the admin or the referee should be multilingual in first place, and should be capable of conducting certain situations and support tickets and the communication online same way as he does in an offline tournament. So he has to be polite, he has to know how to answer, and he has to understand how how to handle situations and offenses and all that kind of stuff. So I think he should be also educated in a literate way, how to convey his thoughts to a person if they have no facial contact or whatever. Done.
Well, there was, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Go ahead.
During COVID, there was not many offline event actually happened, and being a referee was a dangerous work if it was happening, to be honest. But and online, we have seen a massive increase of online tournament, like esports go back into roots. That was actually exciting because right now we had a lot of tools to bring people online. The tournament management was happening on Discord mostly, or similar voice service. And the APIs were allowing us to actually create the game lobbies with instant codes, which we never had it before. And the game servers were up and running because everybody was improving their infrastructure online. So for online world, I believe that we had very good time. I manage tournaments also. I still do this for our business, and working with the new referees together, making the decisions together, and mostly international events because everybody speaks English. The gaming is English all over the world. And I think the COVID helped us a lot for spending so much time with our referees and admins together to run the online championships together. We get more time with them than we do the offline events, which I think it was an advantage for me to help my own referees and admins on site, easy to access and decide together to give them an example. So COVID helped us to bring new referees into the business as well.
I will say for online tournaments, what's needed to be done regarding education is to help referees to understand their tools, the online tools they will be using on an online tournament, ticket system, tournament system, CSM that they will be, they will probably publishing themselves the results of a match or many other technical stuff into the how an online tournament is run. Because on an offline event, I will say, as I said before, that the referee should be doing only the job of running the tournament smoothly for the players and the tournament itself. But online, you have the chances to do a little bit more. Maybe you can run the CSM to update the results of a match. You can leave comments on the match. You can expect the communications of the two different. You can jump from Discord to Discord to do a little bit of managing of the communication between players, like understanding if they are not communicating badly or whatever. I mean, you have the chance to do more, but you have to know the tools that you have to do so. So it will be great for tournaments to educate you on such tools, the kind of tools they are using to run tournaments, so you can be as helpful as you can as a referee.
Okay, I think we have time for a couple more comments, and then that will be it for our panel. So does anybody have some final comments or responses?
Yes. I really agree with David about the online too, because one of the subject that I have refereeing in recent time in the COVID era is that the verification of the player is really important, because like sometimes player use different player other than the one they register at to play to gain advantage or the stuff that why they do it, because there's the money on the line, right? And when it's come to online, you used to verify player with ease in offline event, in offline environment, ID verification or etc. etc. But like lately, when it's come to online, it really like matter in the verification process, because not only verification before the match start, but between the match, like the recording sound of the communication and etc. etc. I think that should include in the academic program as well, and to bring more on the Roman opinion on the mass and stuff, right? When because in Thailand there is the offline event as well, and a lot of player still not like following the guideline for the health organization, right? They forgot their mask, etc. etc. And I think the flu or the COVID or whatever is equally important to look for, like the safety of everyone. Like Hussein said, that the objective of the referee is to make sure that everyone is safe for the tournament as well, right? So the health for the COVID is really important as well, and I think we need to look into it in the near future.
All right. Oh, go ahead. Final thoughts, David?
Yeah, I was about to say that we have the experience with the A flu back in the days in World Cyber Games. We were to Chengdu in China, and there was the A flu pandemic occurring, and there was China's volunteers measuring temperatures at the entrance of the event to prevent people with fever to come inside and such. As I said, and Boratev can confirm, I'm sure, we as referees on offline events tends to do some kind of nursery of babysitting. So this is players are usually young guys, most of them, except Counter-Strike players, that they are all at shit like we do. But most of them are young guys that have in mind, their mind is on the game. We as referees must provide for them the cold head on what to do properly, like having your mask on and don't go out to smoke while in between matches, because it's not the moment, because we have to run on a schedule and stuff. So on the COVID era, we have to be the strict guys that ensure that everything is running smoothly. Also on the health side of the thing, like use your mask, don't forget it, and so on. We must babysit them a little bit, and that's okay. That's part of the referees here. Boratev is smiling because he knows as a pro player, he knows that that's the deal.
Yeah. Great thoughts. I just want to thank everybody for their opinions and conversation perspectives. I learned a lot just from listening to you guys. So thank you so much for your excellent participation. And that is going to bring to an end our panel discussion on building structures for long-term education and career development for referees. So once again, thank you all very much for joining us. And we'll hopefully get a chance to see you next year.